ever faced a challenge that seemed hopeless, yet you think that you have the power to change your life for the better no matter the obstacles you face? Well, if so, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Alethea Felton, and welcome to the Power Transformation Podcast, where we explore the incredible true stories of people who have overcome adversity and created meaningful lives. So, prepare to be inspired, equipped, and empowered, for the time is now to create your power transformation. Hey, y'all. Welcome back for another episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. I am thrilled that you have joined me today. And if you are new to this podcast, I welcome you to the Power Transformation Podcast community. Before we move on, this is what I need you to do. Anybody listening, I want you to take this podcast link wherever you're listening, and I need you to text it to at least 5 people you know. Yes, 5 people. Text it, email it, send it to as many people as you know, at least 5. At least 5. So it can be more. It can be 10, 15, 20. It doesn't matter. The point is, I want you to spread the word about the Power Transformation Podcast. It is because of you that this podcast is able to keep going, and we are still ranked in the top 5% of all podcasts globally, and I could not have done that without you. Today's guest is absolutely incredible, and I am so grateful to have her here. So I want to jump into this interview. And as is customary, I always begin this podcast with an affirmation, and I close with one as well, because I do believe, and I know from firsthand experience, that the more that you affirm the positive in your life, the more that you affirm and say that which is uplifting, it becomes manifested into your reality. So I will say this affirmation once, and you repeat it. I permit myself to accept love and support, even in my darkest moments. I am so excited today. And yes, I use the word excited because the guest that I have today is someone that I think everybody could use in their life. She is a grief transformation coach, but just her pleasant disposition makes my world seem better in just the short time I've known her. And that is none other than Ghulam Fernandes. Welcome to the Power Transformation Podcast, Ghulam.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm really looking forward to sharing whatever I can from my journey that will be of value to your listeners.
Thank you so much. And I know that it will be just that. It will absolutely be a wonderful journey, and they will have so many takeaways from it. And I want to jump into this interview, but before I start, I always like to ask a nice icebreaker question, nothing uncomfortable, but just fun and lighthearted, so that we can get to know you better as the guest. It's a random question. So this is the question I have for you. And the question is this: what is your favorite holiday, if you have one? And what makes that time of year so special for you?
I have to admit that a lot of my favorite holidays have been in Goa. So my husband is originally from Goa, and we spent some time out there when the children were growing up. The thing I love about Goa really is the sunshine. We usually try to time it so it's not too hot, it's not the rainy season, and so on. So, and there are some beautiful beaches, and over the years we've built relationships. So we feel like although we're on holiday, we're not bored because there's always somebody to visit, and if we're having problems, there's always somebody to call for help. So I think Goa's got to be my favorite so far. Not that I've been lots of places, but of all the places I've been to, that's definitely my favorite.
And where exactly geographically is that located?
Goa is it's in India. It's one of the states in India. And
Okay.
so if you find Mumbai on the map and then travel down along the coast, Goa is there. It's a coastal state.
Oh, thank you very much. And for my audience, I do have international listeners, but a lot of us are based here in the US. And if you noticed, for my listeners who are here in the States, I purposely said holiday on purpose because Ghulam is from the UK. And I purposely said holiday instead of vacation because of the fact I know that our country in the US is probably one of the only ones that actually says vacation. But you did answer it exactly. I wanted to know where is a place you like to travel the most and spend
Yeah.
holidays. So thank you. I was like, yay, that worked out perfectly. Thank you. So now my next question for you, it's a loaded question, but you can ask it in any way that you want. And the question is simply this: who is Ghulam Fernandes? How would you describe yourself?
Oh, that is loaded. I think I like the idea of describing myself as somebody who is a beacon of hope.
Hmm.
Especially, when people are feeling hopeless. I believe that seasons come and seasons go. And when you're going through a tough season, it can feel like that's your life forever. So if I was to describe myself as who is Ghulam, I would say Ghulam is a beacon of hope for dark times.
A beacon of hope for dark times. That is actually so poignant and powerful because in this day and age, I think so many people need hope. And there's so much darkness in the world, but it's nice to remind people that there are those of us, people like you, myself, others, who do try our best to inspire and give hope and light back to people. And with your title being a grief transformation coach, that in and of itself has such significance and such weight. What exactly is a grief transformation coach?
So it's very different. What I do is very different than traditional grief counseling. Grief counseling tends to be a talking therapy. And, for some situations, many people do benefit. But over the years of my long extended grief journey, what I realize is that grief is very specific. And in order to identify what needs resolving and then be able to move forward, you actually need knowledge, tools, and processes. So it's taking something that has been a source of great sadness, where you've been very, very focused on the loss and what you don't have, to take you on a journey of being able to regain your connection to the fond memories without them being turning painful, and to start focusing on the love that you did have, not just on the love that you've lost, and start to thinking about how can you honor and be grateful for all that you have had, and how can you weave that into a beautiful expression of the love that you have for the person, so that you're not just stuck feeling sad and full of regrets and guilt, but you're actually able to move forward with a sense of appreciation and gratitude, and wanting to channel all that energy and love that you had into something that can be a continuing expression. So yes, it's like I guess it's about transforming grief into gratitude. And at a simple level, sometimes people go, well, how can I be grateful that they've died? It's not about that at all. It's about being able to reconnect with all the beautiful aspects of the relationship that you've lost touch with, because you've become stuck in a loop of focusing on what you're regretting, or what you feel guilty about, or what you feel sad about. But helping you to move forward so you can get your life back and go on to create a life that's well lived, rather than a life that's just full of, sadness and anxiety and depression and so on.
And when you train and teach people how to do that, it really does change your life. It makes you view everything so differently. And everything you said in that statement is so impactful in many, many ways because of the fact that it takes a person from how I interpret it. It takes a person from this state almost of despair to just full abundance afterwards. And it doesn't mean that the process comes to an end in terms of the grieving process, but it's a way to view it differently and how to shift your thinking on it. I really, really like that. So it leads me to then wonder, Ghulam, where exactly does your grief journey begin? Take us back to that. What is your upbringing? Where were you raised? And what is your first memorable encounter when it comes to grief in terms of the death of a loved one?
So the first thing I want to clarify really is, excuse me, is about what grief is and isn't, because there's a lot of confusion and misunderstandings. And I, like most people, thought that grief was about people dying and just about bereavement. But actually, we realize that it's the conflicted feelings that you get when something comes to an end or there's a significant change in familiar things that happen. So, for example, for me, looking back now, there were probably various grief events. I mean, like, I was born in a very small village in Pakistan, and in 1962, we came to the UK. That was a huge move, and leaving behind all that was familiar and friends and sense of belonging and so on, and having to make a whole new life. But I never thought of that as a grief event. It was only later on when I did my training. But in terms of bereavements, my first experience of that was my mother when I was 13. And she had decided she wanted to go back and visit her family. And I have to admit, we were quite a large family. There were 6 children, and she was taking the youngest one with her.
Wow.
We were quite excited that, while they were away, we'd be able to have all sorts of fun and get up to all sorts of stuff. But just as she was about to leave, I just had this sudden urge to tell her that I loved her and give her a hug. I don't know where that came from. And then I looked around, I saw all these people milling around, come to say bye. And I remember part of my logical self said, oh, don't make a fuss. She'll be back in 6 weeks.
Mm.
And so I didn't say anything. And sadly, she wasn't back in 6 weeks. While she was on holiday, she caught typhoid and then she died.
Wow.
So
To hear that.
it complicated things because we didn't see her to say goodbye. We didn't see the funeral. We didn't see the body. So, I mean, we're talking about a long time ago when I was 13. And so you didn't have videos and all that sort of stuff. So all of a sudden we were like faced with this situation where, she had died and we didn't really know what to do. Sadly, when people are trying to be helpful and well-meaning, sometimes they say things that are actually not very helpful. Lots of myths and misinformation. And this lady, I remember her saying to me, oh, you mustn't cry. You've got to be strong for your brothers and sisters. Now, nobody had ever talked to me about grief or how to handle it or how to avoid getting stuck or anything. So I just believed her. And then I spent years of my life, up until I was about 30, actually, trying to not cry and be strong for my brothers and sisters. So if you looked at me from the outside, you would think, oh, she's doing really well. She's really strong. She's this, that. Inside, I was a right old mess. every time somebody would actually talk about something would come up about mothers in the conversation, and I would have to say, oh, actually, my mum died. I would get really tearful and emotional and start crying. And they'd say, oh, when did she die? And I think the expectation is that if it's like a month, 2 months, a year, maybe 2 years, like, okay. But we're talking like 10, 15 years down the line. And it's as if I'm stuck in that moment of feeling regret that I didn't tell her I loved her and so on. And I'd say, oh, I think it's 10 years. And they go, what?
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with you? How come you're
Mm.
still grieving? And that was really because they didn't understand, and I didn't understand the nature of grief, that there are three main causes of grief. One is undelivered communication. And then you have regrets about that. There was something important you wanted to say, but you never got to say it. So every time I would think of my mum, I couldn't think about anything else apart from being stuck in that moment of, why didn't I tell her I loved her? Why didn't I listen to my heart? Why did I listen to that logical? And so I would distract myself with all kinds of things, carry on with life. There's plenty of distractions.
Mhm.
Carry on trying to be strong, keep busy, and so on. But not realizing that actually out of sight is not really out of mind, and that my grief was really just sitting there. So when I got to around 30, my older brother died very suddenly from a massive heart attack.
Oh.
Then not only did I have to deal with that grief, but all the unresolved grief around my mum then came up. And it was like a double whammy that just really, I often say grief can come like a tsunami out of
Hmm.
the blue and then just devastate your life. And that's how it felt, really. And I tried I'll carry on being strong and so on, but I realized that wasn't working. It was just too much. So
Let
I
me
ended
ask
up,
you this really quickly. I don't
sure.
mean to cut you off, but you literally said from 13 until 30, 30. That's a
Yes.
lot of years to not deal
Yes.
with that
Yes.
grief. So during those years, what were your emotions like? What were you thinking? Were you constantly trying to suppress them? Take us through that aspect of it. How did it literally feel holding on to such extreme grief for all of those years?
Well, I think it impacted me in all kinds of ways. But the thing is, it's like, imagine if you got a backpack,
Mhm.
got some heavy emotions, and you put them in there, and then you try and carry on with life as if, carry on with life. The thing is that each time something happens, and whether it's an actual bereavement or another loss,
Mhm.
it's like more grief gets added, and then more grief gets added, and then more grief gets added. So you can carry on as if life is okay, but it gets to a point where the balance is tipped. And that, for me, that happened when my older brother died very suddenly, because now not only did I have to deal with, he was not very much older than me. So all of a sudden, not only was I dealing with the loss of my brother and all that that meant, but I also became very fearful about death and dying, because
Mm.
I used to believe that old people died and other people died. And now all of a sudden, it wasn't old and it wasn't other. And I became very fearful and anxious, because I thought, well, he died just like that, like I could just die just like that.
Mhm.
And so that actually kick-started me into a whole journey of, not trying to avoid the grief, but actually trying to figure out, well, what is life about? Because you just carry on with your daily life,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden your worldview gets shattered. So for me, it was like suddenly, well, where are they? What happens when you die? Is there a God? If there is a God, what is he? What's he like? And all those big questions that normally you just ignore them. But when something like that happens, it does make you review everything.
It
Uh,
does.
so I ended up deciding. I thought I was coping, But it was very obvious to my co-workers that I wasn't. I was doing I've got to be strong and all the rest of it. But my co-worker, she said, Ghulam, I think you probably should take some time off because I don't see that you're coping very well, actually. And then I realized I needed to take time out. But it didn't feel like a couple of weeks would be enough. So I actually decided to resign from my job and go traveling off to India and just take as long as I needed to try and make sense of what life was about. Basically, about a year after my brother's death, my younger sister had a delayed grief reaction, just as I was getting ready to leave for India. And she had a nervous breakdown because out of all of us, she looked like she was coping really well. And so this thing about putting on a front, being brave, keeping busy, the downside of it can be that, it can lead to all sorts of other mental illnesses. And so I was all of a sudden like, oh, I don't know, what should I do? Should I go? Should I not go? Should I take her with me? But I've never been to India. In the end, she came back to her being her normal self, and she's persuaded me to go. She said, you really need this. I'm fine now. I'm with the family and so on and so forth. So off I went on my quest.
Exactly. Pilgrimage of sorts.
Sadly, I got news. I'd been out there about 3 months, and I got news that she had a relapse and I should head back. Again, I tried to contact her, and it's very hard in those days. I couldn't get through. And so I thought, that logical part of me popped and said, you'll see it tomorrow. Don't worry about it. But sadly, she was alive when I left India. But by the time I landed in London, she had walked out of the facility where I thought she was safe, and she'd had another go at trying to take her own life. And this time she'd succeeded. So that was another knockback that then meant I had more work to do. And then a year later, my father, devastated by all the losses he'd experienced, he got sick and then he died. And then I went on to have 3 miscarriages. So, and that's just the bereavement side of things. Obviously, in between there were sort of romantic breakups and major changes of moving and jobs and all those sorts of things. So I think for me, because I felt like I was lost in a maze and there were no directions on how to go, which way to go. So I felt I spent quite a lot of time trying this, trying that. You name it, I probably tried it. I got very involved in all kinds of new age therapies and different things. Now, they can all provide helpful benefits for certain things, but I realized that for grief, because the cause of grief, the cause of unresolved grief, the cause of the type of grief where you get stuck and don't progress with your journey, I realized that the 3 main causes. One, as I mentioned, is undelivered communication of a significant emotional nature. The second is where you wish things had been better or different. So that was the case with my sister. I kept thinking about, well, what if I'd taken her with me? Or what if I hadn't gone? Or what if I'd written letters regularly to her? Or what if I'd managed to get through on that phone call? So wherever you have kind of regrets about wishing that you'd done something differently, that means there's a possibility you can get stuck because there are unresolved things. And the third type is really where you've developed hopes, dreams, and expectations, but they haven't come to fruition because of the ending of whatever happened. That is now no longer possible. So I remember a lady that I studied because I was, in my journey, I was trying to figure out, well, how is it that some people manage to move forward and get on with their life? And how is it I've been stuck for so long? And I realized that all she wanted was to be a good wife and mother. That she didn't have any other ambitions. She just thought that was like her life's purpose, to be a really good wife and good mother. So when her marriage broke up and she ended up getting divorced, she just lost her sense of identity. And all her hopes and dreams that were attached to being a good wife and mother were obviously no longer possible. So in my case, I had two sons who I love very much, and then I had my husband, but I did sometimes feel outnumbered by them. And so when I was pregnant with a girl, I was like, whoa, that's really going to be fantastic.
Exactly.
To, I'll have somebody on my side and so on. But sadly, when I had the miscarriage, then all those hopes and dreams that I'd built up about, girly things and having a mountain of pink things and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, that came to an end. So those are the three. Often, if somebody's feeling stuck and struggling to move forward, it's because there's either undelivered communication, and sometimes it can be a mixture, undelivered communication that's significant, or wishing that you've done things differently and you've got feelings of regret and guilt, or the hopes and dreams that you had and now you feel that's not there. There was a client I worked with, and she'd had a very difficult marriage, and then she met some wonderful guy, and they'd been married for quite a long time, and she thought that was going to be the rest of her life. And so when he died, sadly, she was left feeling like she had no future because all her future was tied up with him. And another lady who had been widowed, they'd had all these dreams about what they were going to do when they retired. They were going to set up a place for homeless people and this and that. And then all of their dreams suddenly, obviously, were gone.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes that's really the issue, that in the process, we talk about that people often end up in a wasteland. If you were to imagine that your life was a garden, when the tsunami of grief comes, it's like your garden has suddenly been hit by this storm and it's left as a wasteland.
That's right.
A place that's neglected and so on. And then sometimes people just get so focused and stuck on that they don't think there is an option. So really, in the process, we help people to start realizing that letting sleeping dogs lie or trying to limp along with life with all this unresolved grief that's weighing you down is not really going to help you in the long run. And people often say, oh, but it's going to be so emotional. And I say, well, it's having a blocked toilet. It's very messy, but if you don't, it gets messier.
It sure does.
Yeah. So then we teach people the misinformation that they need to weed out if their garden is going to flourish. And some common misinformation is this idea that grief has stages. People often talk about the 5 stages of grief. So sometimes clients come and they're kind of so focused on, well, what stage am I at and what stage was going to be next? They don't realize actually each person is unique. The relationship they have is unique. Their resilience and capabilities of handling things is unique. So their journey is going to be really unique. So sometimes people get into the issue of comparison, which is not helpful. And they go, I don't know what's wrong with me. I cry all the time. So doesn't cry. Or they go, I don't know what's wrong with me. I rarely cry and people cry all the time. Does that mean I didn't really love them?
That's right. Yeah.
No, not at all. You are unique. How you handle things is unique. So stop comparing yourself.
Briefly, I want to jump in with those stages of grief because as I share with you, I've experienced grief also differently, but in terms of the loss of a loved one, but also grief in many other forms, even outside of human death. And with the grief counseling I had here in the States, it does talk about the 5 stages of grief, but they always made it very clear that don't look at those stages as being in any particular order, and that at times they can overlap and it's different for everybody, because at times, sometimes people want to check off, okay, am I angry? Am I in denial? And they can come at any given moment. These are things you may experience during grief, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be in this particular order and it has to look like this or that for everybody. So I'm glad you actually clarified that, because I think sometimes people, and I was in more of a grief group session, and that sometimes people were looking to see, okay, am I in this stage or what stage? And to kind of get that out of your head, that it's not a one size fits all approach to grief. And so, as you're experiencing the death of your mother, your sister, your brother, your sister, your father, your babies, when was that turning point for you where you said, I want to help other people? So you started to get the help that you needed, but when did you decide to become a grief transformation coach? And then how exactly do you empower people to really get back their peace, to be productive, to get passion again in life? Because sometimes grief hits so hard that all you want to do is stay in bed all day and never get out, or keep the blanket over your head, and you just don't know what's going to happen. The audience knows a bit, and I shared a bit. Wow, I've lost a lot of people, from my godmother to a lot of people. My two best friends died within 2 years of each other. And they both had very quick illnesses. And these were ladies, I thought we were going to be little old ladies growing old together. And so when they left the earth, then it left me wondering, okay, how do I keep going forward with my goals when they were a huge part of them? So, when did you say, I want to help people through this journey? And how exactly do you do that?
So, in terms of when did I decide, I think because my journey was so long and complicated, and little pieces I fixed here, little pieces I fixed here. And throughout the whole thing, it really sent me on a quest to figure out about faith. That helped. But eventually I realized that, I mean, I really thankful for the support I had and the friendships I had, and then the children I had and so on. So it's like, starting to see things as a circle of life. But I realized that actually, if I'd known some of the things I knew at the end of all those years of going around in circles earlier, I wouldn't have spent so much time in pain and
Mm,
trying all the different therapies.
wow.
So it was always on my heart that I wanted to do something. But, life gets busy, and you're busy surviving, bringing up your
Right.
children and managing your career and so on. And I had been involved with helping on a voluntary basis and different things. And then in the pandemic, actually before the pandemic, it was on my heart to think, well, how can I train myself so that I'm not just kind of doing better myself, but equipped to help other people? So I started exploring what the options were out there, and I came across a course which it really appealed to me, because it was more about empowering people with the right knowledge, tools, and processes, so that not only can they handle the grief that they're struggling with now, but they're equipped to handle future grief. But the course at that time was in person, and my husband was going through some health issues. And I thought, I can't really take that many days away. And then you've got the course fees, and then you've got the travel, and then you've got
Yeah.
accommodation. So I was like,
That's a
I don't
lot.
know.
Hmm.
Yeah. But then the pandemic happened, and their course went online. And I thought, oh, I don't have to go traveling away from home. I can still be here for my husband. And it's a lot more affordable because I haven't got travel and accommodation and so on. So that was brilliant. I was able to do the training online. And then, because I had more time as well, because of the pandemic, we were laid off on furlough schemes and all those sorts of things. So many things came together to kind of make it possible. And in my head, I was thinking, okay, well, I'll be retiring in a couple of years' time. I'll see one or two people on the side. I had a job as a pastoral care worker, and I wanted to be more effective in how I was serving my clients. But I thought, well, I'll see one or two people now, and then later on, when I retire, I'll see one or two more people. But in my head, I was kind of winding down. And then I came across somebody who were talking about vision and passion and purpose. And I said, well, I've got this thing on my heart, but I'm not quite sure what that looks like. And he did a visualization exercise with me where you've probably heard of this, where he got me to imagine that it was my last breath on earth. And what did I see and what's happening? And I just remember seeing a huge crowd of people, everywhere. And I said to him, I just saw this massive crowd of people. He said, well, what are they doing? He said, just have a look in your mind, what do they seem to be doing? So I went back in, I'm looking around, and I said, well, it seems as if they've come to thank me for helping them and to celebrate my life. And it was very emotional experience. It felt so real. And then I suddenly thought, whoa, my little dream of I'll see one or two clients now and one or two clients later, it's not going to get me from here to there. And so I just had I thought, if not now, when? And I actually resigned from my job. And 2 years ago, I started my full-time practice as a grief transformation coach.
How beautiful, how beautiful. And to just know that influence is so needed. And I know I had asked you earlier to just share how a person can get back peace, productivity, etc. I want to modify that question some. We have about 15 minutes left, and I wanted to just kind of modify it because a part of it too is to also bring hopefully more clientele your way. So I don't want you to give away all of your trade secrets. So I want to switch it some, but in just the last few minutes, and of course at the end, I'll have you share how people can connect with you. But when you use the word empowering people, somebody
Yes.
might think, how in the world do you empower someone who's grieving? So just share briefly, again, without giving out all of the secret sauce.
I'm happy to give out as much as I can because it's part of my mission, really.
Okay.
Not everybody's going to be in a
True.
position where they need the specialized help,
Yes.
maybe where they financially can afford it. So
Yes.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you graciously. So just share a few ways of how a person can be empowered despite their grief so that they can get back to having a productive life.
So I think the first thing really is to recognize that grief is a normal, natural part of life. Sometimes people think they're going crazy. I certainly did. And sometimes they think that that's what life is always going to look like, that what they're feeling currently, especially if it's gone on for some time, they extend that into the future and forget that actually they can't choose what happened, but they can choose how they respond to what's happened. And I think one of the problems is the lack of understanding. If you don't understand what grief is, what causes unresolved grief, if you don't understand what are the symptoms that you need to look out for and how it can impact you physically, mentally, and spiritually, then it's like you're trying to solve a problem without understanding what the problem is. So in the 12-week program that I take people through, we start off really by looking at the knowledge that they need. And the knowledge is to do with understanding the meanings of what is grief, how do you get completeness, what is unresolved grief. And then we move on to some of the misinformation that they may have grown up with. There are a lot of common sayings which sound like they must be true because we commonly hear them, they're repeated. So when that lady told me, oh, you've got to be strong, I assumed that that was correct. But actually, that is just not helpful because you're feeling what you're feeling. And if somebody tells you you shouldn't be feeling that way, then you stop trying to feel what you're feeling and try to pretend it's not there.
Yes.
So that gets you, that can get you stuck. Other common sayings can be things like, oh, just give it time. Well, I used to think I'll just give it time, which was what got me caught in spending years. They say, oh, it'll get better with time. Well, I got from 13 to 30 and realized that time was not making a difference.
No.
So when I came across this illustration, like if you have a flat tire, how long do you have to wait for it to reflate itself? Well, you could be waiting the whole of your life. And sadly, some people they can go years stuck with their grief because they think time's a healer. Well, it's not the time that's a healer, but it's the actions that you take over that time. So, knowing how to change the tire. If you don't know how to change the tire, getting help, calling in the professionals. So we go through some of the common sayings that can get you stuck. We also look at some of the unhelpful things that people can do as a way of trying to cope, like self-soothing, sabotaging behaviors. For me, I had never realized, but I turned to comfort eating. I always thought it was to do with my hormones because around that time was also puberty. So I was connected to the two. But later on, I realized actually every time I felt grief, I'd go and stuff my face with something. So for years, I struggled with my weight issues and so on. And then we talk about all the other things. Sometimes people turn to drink or pornography, or they can turn to gambling or smoking, or sometimes they turn to things that can in themselves be good, but because they become obsessive about it as a way of distracting themselves from their grief, they actually end up not being helpful. So it could be things like cleaning. I do sometimes wish I'd had a little bit of that.
Yes.
Same here. Or exercise. Some people get into compulsive exercising or helping other people. And helping other people is a really good thing. But if you do it to such a point where you're neglecting your own needs, then it becomes unhelpful because that's how you're distracting yourself. You're always sorting out everybody else's problems. I think I did get a touch of that growing up. Everybody saw me as their mother and as the strong one, and I'd often be heard saying, well, what about me?
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was creating that as a way of distracting myself from the pain of my grief. So we talk about needing to do some weeding and to understand that misinformation it's like a minefield. You've got a minefield of misinformation to navigate. And like me, if you step on something and you believe it, it can really blow up in your face and get you stuck. We then also talk about being willing to do the work. Sometimes people go, oh, I'm not sure if I should, because if I get my life back, does that mean I didn't really love them? It's as if I should suffer as a sign of loyalty. Actually, you're not serving them. You're not serving yourself. You're not serving their memory. And so then we take you through the, the knowledge. Then we give you specific tools for reviewing your life. Excuse me 1 second. A tool to review your life so that you can actually get a sense of how much is in your backpack and then prioritize which relationship, if you heal it and deal with it, will make the biggest impact, and we'll work on that first. And then once you've learned the processes, you can then use them on each consequent relationship. Underlying quite a lot is usually people feel regrets about some of the things that happen.
Mm.
So we give them some processes where they're able to make peace with that. Sometimes it's things that you felt hurt by and you need to forgive. And sometimes it's just things you never communicated about how thankful you were for some of the things that they did, and how grateful you were, and all the fond memories that you now miss. So being able to deliver those uncommunicated things just helps you to feel a sense of completion, that you're not carrying unresolved things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I help people to gather up all the fond memories that they want to carry forward, because the person, and the memories that they have for us, they all live in our heart, and being able to reconnect with those. So, as a practical example, my mum, I was so caught up with the sadness, I couldn't connect with the happy times and the funny times. So
Interesting.
after I'd made peace with the pain of the past and delivered all the undelivered stuff, I suddenly remembered all the funny things. And why I'm smiling, I mean, this is a audio, so maybe they can't see, but
We could
she,
hear it in your voice.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, we had a hilarious thing, and this is me showing my age. We were in primary school and we were watching them landing on the moon. We
Okay.
came home all excited. Mum, we watched the man land on the moon today on television. And she goes, don't be ridiculous. Look at the moon. It's so small. How can anybody land on there? And it's
Oh,
like,
I love
that
that.
was in the pain I'd forgotten. And then there was
Yeah.
some magic tricks we used to play. And she was so,
Oh.
she used to believe that we really could do magic. So it's just really good once you've dealt with the pain to be able to reconnect with the laughter and the kindness and the love that was there. And once, especially, sometimes I've had clients, I'm thinking of one in particular, who had a very difficult time with her parents growing up. They had issues of their own, and she just felt like she didn't get the love and everything she deserved, and she felt very bitter about it, very angry, very bitter. And then in turn, she acted out, um, which meant that in turn they were more, unkind and so on. So they were stuck in a bit of a vicious circle. Once she dealt with the pain, it was so wonderful to see her smile and be able to actually reconnect. Actually, in the bad times, there were still some times. So I've created something called the Fond Memories Matrix. So I help people to gather up all the things that they want to take forward with them, so they know that whenever they're feeling sad or a little low or something, instead of going to like I used to, oh, I wish I'd done this and that, I can actually look at the fond memories and enjoy them. It's not enough to deal with the pain, I realized, and a lot of processes will focus on dealing with the pain, making peace with the past, but I realized that you actually then need to start creating a new vision for your life, because things have changed. You're no longer the same. Things are no longer the same. Maybe people are no longer there. And you start creating a new vision where you think about, well, how do I want to remember them? Or what do I want to do in honor of their memory? Or what are the things that they would love to have done that they can't do, but I can do on their behalf?
Mm-hmm.
So creating a new vision that's aligned to a new sense of purpose and a new recognition that life is really precious, and we have a choice whether we spend it feeling sad and miserable and guilty and all those things, or whether we actually turn it into something beautiful. I was on a workshop once and we were working with clay. So I realized we can all be handed a ball of clay, and that clay can represent grief. And you can carry that ball of clay around feeling sad and all those sorts of things, and be weighed down by it. Or you can go, okay, what can I do with this ball of clay to bring something beautiful out of all this
Mhm.
pain and sadness and so on. And for me, that was really why I decided I wanted to help other people, because I thought I've been through so much pain over so many years. I want something good to come out of it. I don't want it to have just robbed me of all those years. And so I call it really that it's about turning your pain into purpose.
Mhm.
And one day I hope to have a podcast by that name. And I shall definitely be inviting you to come and
Oh,
be.
thank you. It will be my honor. It definitely will. And I already know that I want you back on the show in the future because we could take this conversation in so many different ways. But I think this is a very good start just to have people to understand grief itself, but also to let them know that grief looks different and also it's okay to have your grieving journey and to know that you can get back to life, a very productive life, maybe one even more productive than it was prior to that loss happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. And
Absolutely.
so, if a person wants to connect with you outside of this podcast, how can they connect with you, Ghulam?
Well, they can find the links in the show notes,
Mhm.
but the simplest way really is to go to my website. It's www.handling-grief.com,
Yes.
or they can just search for Google my name. I
Yes,
think I'll
exactly.
probably come up. But the next time, I would love to talk about the importance of self-care
Hmm.
as being an important part of being able to move through. And also that it's not an either or thing. It's not that you're either grieving or that you're happy, um, but that you can actually create moments of peace, comfort, and joy and take time out from your grief so that you can build yourself up and be better equipped to deal with it. So I'd love to come back and talk more about that.
Yes, indeed. And you have my word that that will happen because this conversation has been so rich and so full and it's ongoing. And I want to be respectful of our time as well as to the audience where and the fact you all now I'm on the East Coast of the US and you are in London and to know that you are 5 hours ahead of me. So you are in the future. So just
Yes.
the fact that you've made that sacrifice to even be on the show, I truly appreciate you. I could hear you speak for hours on end just with your knowledge and your insight.
Thank
And
you.
we will definitely reconnect. And just with this brief time that I've known you, I thank you for your platform and what you do in your mission in life to help others through this journey. And I am a witness where, although I haven't had transforma- grief transformation coaching through you, I too have had my own grief journey. And so I understand the power there is in really coming to head with what we experience and how to move forward in a more productive way. It was such an honor having you here today, and we will definitely be in touch very soon to have you back on.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my journey.
Wasn't that absolutely amazing? I am so grateful for Ghulam for taking her time to share those nuggets, those powerful pieces of information with us. And we all experience grief in some shape or form in our life. And so everything that she shared with us is absolutely perfect, regardless of if you are grieving now or you have in the past. The point is, it is inevitable, but there is a way for you to make it through victoriously, courageously, and with more hope. So, again, I am grateful that Ghulam presented what she did today. And This is the type of episode that I encourage you to listen to more than once and again to share it. Let's go ahead and close out with our affirmation. I'll say it once and you repeat it. I permit myself to accept love and support, even in my darkest moments. If you enjoyed today's show, then you don't want to miss an episode. So follow the Power Transformation Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you usually listen, and remember to rate and review. I also invite you to connect with me on social media at Alethea Felton. That's at ALETHEAFELTON. Until next time, remember to be good to yourself and to others.